have a legible score available for them.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're playing a public performance, like acknowledge them on your recital posters and programs. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
not, everything's not about you. It's about all of you.
Yes. Hello and welcome back to Confident Musicianing. Today we are talking with Dr. Nathália Kato Giordano. Dr. Nathália Kato Giordano has a doctorate in music from the University of Colorado Boulder, a Master of Music at the University of Colorado Boulder, a Master of Music at the Campinas State University in Brazil, and a Bachelor of Music at the Pará State University in Brazil as well. She is a collaborative pianist and adjunct professor of voice at Duquesne University, and she was the collaborative pianist at the University of Wyoming between 2020 and 2022. And she collaborates with the vocal ensembles, opera workshop, and vocalists and instrumentalists at Duquesne University. Hello, Dr. Nathália.
Hello, Eleanor. Well, you know that for you it's just Natalia, right?
Yes.
Thanks
Yes.
for acknowledging my title, though.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is lovely to have you on. I'm so grateful. Let's dive right in. I saw when I was doing a bit of background research on you that you have quite the extensive education background, with studying not only in Brazil but also the States. What made you want to study in both places, and what is one thing that you wish you knew before coming to the States and studying in a new country?
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be here with you today. So I went to school in Brazil because that's where I'm from.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I went to college, and that's where I also went to for my first master's degree. Then um, what made me come to the States is because ever since I was a teenager, I've always been interested in accompanying, which is, maybe later we can talk about the term accompanying. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so um, I've always been interested in what people know as accompanying. So that means playing with other people, playing for other people. Um, anyway, so in Brazil, we do not have um, a collaborative piano or accompanying as a degree at universities.
Oh.
Yes, so my first master's degree is actually in piano performance,
Mm-hmm.
solo piano, and I've always wanted to pursue a degree in chamber music, accompanying or collaborative piano, right?
Mm-hmm.
So after doing my research, I decided to come to the States, and that's how I ended up here. So in 2015, I came to the States, and then I did my master's in collaborative piano, and then I decided to pursue my doctorate.
Mm-hmm. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. I had no idea that in Brazil, like, collaborative piano wasn't a degree. Um,
Mm.
yeah, interesting. That's really cool. Yeah, and then I guess when you came to the States and studied music in a whole different country, a whole different environment, what is maybe something that you wish you knew before studying in a new country?
What I wish I knew. Um, that it's okay to feel vulnerable.
Ooh.
Yes. When I came to the States, it was my first time, um, moving hundreds and hundreds of miles away from my parents.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I did I went to school. Well, I did my bachelor's in my hometown, but then I moved to southern Brazil for my master's. But, still, I was able to see my parents and my family, multiple times a year, because it was, just a matter of hopping on a plane and going to my hometown. But, moving overseas, it's a different story, so I felt extremely vulnerable, and I was nearly 30, so I was in a different place in my life that feeling vulnerable wasn't, in my mind, it wasn't okay, because I think probably was just too silly to think that, I'm an adult and I'm a grown up. I'm not allowed to have these kind of feelings. But here I am in my late 20s, feeling so vulnerable and sensitive, and, which it's so natural and so normal to have these kind of feelings when you're in a country where everything is so new to you, the language and the culture and the system as a whole. So that's something that I wish I knew. I have learned my lesson for sure.
I think that is so insightful. I think the idea of feeling vulnerable in a new country, I think it is such a completely different system, and especially as you were saying, when you're maybe in your late 20s and you're an adult now, so you should know how the world works, but it's a completely different world in a new country. So
Absolutely.
I think that's really, really important that you said that. Kind of on the same idea, for me at least, I am just about to move to the UK, and even though it is a country that I do belong to, I do have a British passport, it's at the same time, it's kind of a new thing because I have lived almost all my life in the States. And I think that there might be some listeners as well who might be thinking of moving either far away or maybe doing something abroad. So if anyone is maybe considering it but maybe is nervous about it, is there anything that maybe you would like to tell them, or any advice when thinking about should I do this thing where I do something abroad?
Well, an advice that I would definitely give, one is be open-minded. Be willing to I don't know, to just learn what you don't know. And that doesn't mean just in terms of music. You know what I mean? Because most likely you're gonna be exposed to other cultures as well, as I was. And we learn so much. And so it's extremely enriching, not only musically, but also personally and culturally. So, that's priceless. So be open-minded, be extremely disciplined, which I do not worry about you at all, because I know you, and I know how disciplined you are. But yeah, that's something extremely important too, but not only with your studies, but also with your finances and things that you don't think about until you're on your own, you know what I mean? And just be disciplined in general. And, for example, I did not have the help of my parents when I moved overseas. You know what I mean? So it was a brand new experience too.
Yeah.
That for the first time in my life, I was on my own, and I had to figure things out. So yeah, and I think the most important piece of advice that I would give is have faith,
Mm-hmm.
meaning believing things that you cannot see. And I'm here quoting a mentor of mine who
Mm-hmm.
is actually British too.
Oh, okay.
Yes, and my life really changed the the time I heard that from him,
Mm-hmm.
and that it almost became like a mantra.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I feel so discouraged, I remember him saying that, and
Okay.
it's so true. Because um, we are doing things and we are working hard, and it's of course it's impossible to see where that whole hard work is taking us,
Yes.
is leading us. So, um, yeah, just have faith and keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give up. There are moments when you think, you cannot do this anymore
Mm-hmm.
for any reasons, but just have faith and listen to your inner voice. We
Yeah.
also that's something that I also learned being miles and miles away from my family.
Mm-hmm.
We have to trust our instincts. We do have them.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, those are my advices.
I love that. I love that, we touched on kind of musical stuff, but we also touched on a lot of non-musical stuff as well. With just kind of moving to another country. That is really interesting. I think, as you were talking about that, I was thinking about like, because I'm gonna be moving back to the UK, so like I gotta think about all of that stuff when I do that as well.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you are an adjunct professor of voice at Duquesne University. I find this particularly interesting. It's really cool. What made you decide to teach voice, and how does your experience with the piano come into that?
Right. I actually do not teach voice. I'm a vocal coach, which is different.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, unlike a voice teacher, a
Mm-hmm.
vocal coach shouldn't be dealing with vocal technique. So I deal
Oh.
with the other elements inherent to the vocal repertoire, like diction and inflection of the text, phrasing, things like that. So I know that the title is misleading,
Mm-hmm.
but usually pianists who are specialized in vocal repertoire, like
Mm-hmm.
me, and serve as vocal coaches at music schools and universities,
Mm-hmm.
they belong to the voice area, therefore the title professor of voice.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so
That
at
makes a
Duquesne
lot more sense.
University, that's right. Yeah, so at Duquesne University I serve both as a vocal coach but also as a music director for opera workshop, so I'm directly involved in the voice area, and so that's why I'm listed as a and I do not belong to the keyboard area. I belong to the
Ah.
voice area. Yeah, which is very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does that so how does like piano, I guess, cuz piano is your like you have degrees in piano and piano is your thing. So how does that kind of work into your role at Duquesne?
Um, yeah, so it's very, very common to see pianists um, who decide to specialize in vocal rap,
Mhm.
which means they are. I mean, they pretty much play vocal repertoire, but all not only that, but they really dig into this whole world, which is it's a the upside down world. If you're translating to Stranger Things,
Mhm.
we there are some people like me,
Mhm.
um, very passionate about um, the vocal world. So we do study diction. We
Mm.
do study other languages in order to be able to help voice students, um, with those with these things, with these elements. So so we actually play when a student come to see us. We play for them, so we coach them from the piano. So of course, it's essential that that we have to have piano skills, because we are playing but also listening at the same time. So it's a very interesting role for sure. And you see vocal coaches at universities. You're going to see vocal coaches who prepare professional singers at opera houses. Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
So we are basically, um, or essentially rather, team teaching alongside a voice teacher. You know what I mean? So the voice teacher deals with the technique part, and then the vocal coach deals with all the rest.
That is really interesting. I had no idea how that was structured. I mean, I'm not a voice person, so I play the oboe. So
Yeah, I mean there are degrees in this country that is for that. Like you get a master's in vocal coaching. You get a master's in there are master's and doctorate degrees all over the country. Specifically for that, which is so cool.
That is so cool. And I love how you touched a bit on like how language comes into that. And I mean, I wonder how your knowledge of Portuguese kind of fits into that, because Portuguese is a Romance language, and like most operas are Romance languages. So yeah. So how does that fit, or has Portuguese kind of helped you learn, like, say, Italian better or something like that?
Yeah, definitely. It definitely helps. I'm lucky. So the structure of the language is very similar to Italian and also French, even Spanish, so because they all have the same roots.
Yeah.
So and also the sounds, Portuguese is a very, it's a complex language in a very beautiful way, because it's just a mix of all these languages that I just mentioned.
Yeah.
We have the nasal sounds from French, and we have the pure vowels from Italian. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's really really cool. I mean, as you can see, like, I'm just so passionate about this, and I could keep going on and on all day. But yes, definitely, being a Portuguese speaker helps me with that. And but besides that, I've always been interested in languages in general. So I have well, my grandparents were Japanese, so, and I lived in Japan as a kid, so I have that a little bit of Japanese.
Yes.
In my brain. I'm not as fluent as I used to be, unfortunately, but I remember a little bit, and I've always, as I said, I've been interested in other languages. So I've studied German. I've done operas in Russian. So I mean, I wouldn't be able to coach Russian, but at least I had the contact with the language, which is pretty nice.
Yeah.
So I understand the concept and how the structure of the language works.
Yeah.
So I've had a contact with a lot of languages that I'm not fluent in necessarily, but I could probably assist with diction a little bit.
Yeah, no, I love that. That is so cool. I mean, I also love languages. It's a hobby of mine to learn languages. So, I mean, I just wanted to touch on that a little bit because, as soon as you were like, language is part of my job, I'm like, okay, let's dive into that. That is so extremely cool. how the vocal aspect has languages with it. Kind of talking a little more about the piano aspect. You have a lot of experience with working with students, not only with like opera and vocal coaching, but also like as a collaborative pianist, like also like me, like you've been an accompanist for me as well. And so as you have worked with young musicians, what are a few things that you think maybe young musicians should be working more on, like as a whole?
There is a meme that I adore that is on my office door, and it says, "The answer is in the piano score."
Ooh.
So I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be passive aggressive, but oftentimes people focus on their on parts as they should,
Yeah.
but it's crucial that they get to know the other parts too. Um, so it's common that they forget or even don't realize that their part is just a fraction of the total.
Yeah.
Is 50% of the music if they are playing a duo, or
Mm-hmm.
the 33% of the music if they're playing a trio. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really important that you know what's going on outside of your own bubble.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think that's what I would tell young musicians who are, just starting to, um, as they they get more and more advanced,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna start collaborating with other people, whether it's a pianist or a string quartet or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but it's important for them to know what's going on, and that the music is just the juxtaposition of all the parts, and
Yeah.
yeah, so
Yeah, I
I hope
think I
that
think
makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I love that that meme that you talked about as well. Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense in the fact that yeah, I feel like a lot of people, myself included, sometimes feel like, our part is maybe the part like because we're the soloist, right? So it's the most important part, but in actuality, it's like it's just a fraction of the whole. And if you can't like follow a pianist, then it's not gonna work. So yeah, no, I'm really glad that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Natalia, what does your most effective practice routine look like? If you were to describe like a really good practice routine, what are some things that you make sure that you do?
That's a very it's a very interesting question
Mm-hmm.
because the answer to that question is constantly changing for me. And
Mm,
it's always changed. It's so funny because, as young musicians, I mean, I'm including myself, when when I was younger,
yeah.
um, I would, I've always thought that, I would always have the same practice routine for the rest of my life, that I have the same amount of time that I have and this and that. But, life happens,
Mm-hmm.
and here I am in my mid 30s, a mother of a 10-month-old,
Yeah.
and I do not have the time that I used to have just
Mm-hmm.
a year ago. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it it's constantly changing, and I'm gonna tell you, like, today what I'm gonna describe you what is an ideal routine for me.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to have, like, it would be amazing if I had an hour in the morning, an hour in the afternoon, an hour in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
So to practice and just focus on the things that I should be working on, and on my technique, and I don't know, learning music.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's the other thing that, as life happens, your, the possibility, your professional possibilities also um, broaden. So,
Okay.
like today, I have to play for auditions, but I also have to prepare for an opera workshop that is coming up, and
Mm.
I also have to take care of my technique. But then I also have to do this. So and then all of a sudden I'm like, well, 3 hours is actually not that much for
Mm-hmm.
all the things that I have to prepare for. But what I always tell my students. Well, let me answer the first question though. So yeah, so if I could have an hour each, time of the day, like in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon, 1 hour in the evening, it would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not what happens in real life.
Yeah.
So then I'm gonna tell you what I usually tell my students, because they ask me these questions all the time, like, oh, how much you think I should practice?
Mm-hmm.
And my answer to them is um, almost always the same, which is I really don't I really don't care how much you practice, but how you practice. So
Mm.
how efficient can you be, with 30 minutes that you have available for practicing?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
that's sometimes what happens to me. Well, I'm solo parenting this week, so I only have, I don't know, 45 minutes, between 45 and 90 minutes a day
Mm-hmm.
to, um, to practice the piano. So how can I be efficient?
Mm.
So coming up with strategies, and only you are able to tell yourself
Yeah.
what you should be focusing on.
Yeah.
So I think just it's an exercise of being very true to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because practicing, it can be fun, but it also can be a pain. And
Yes.
but not okay. What I mean is, it's hard when you have to work on when you have to deal with things that you're not good at.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It can be painful, and that's what I mean when I say it's a pain, because
Yeah.
it is. It's a real pain, and it's so much more fun to be sounding good and to be working on things that you're good at, because of
Mm-hmm.
course you want to be, you know, hearing your good self.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
um, so, I think when it comes to efficiency, really, truly focusing on the things that you are not good at all,
Mm.
I think that's the key.
Okay. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's really really well said. Work on the stuff that you're not good at. I
Yep.
think. Yeah. I think.
And of course, if you have several hours in the day, then yes, you do have time to sound good and to sound bad. But
Yeah.
if you have a limited amount of time, then you better sound really bad so you can sound good tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. I don't remember who said this, but I heard someone say like a good musician's practice session sounds bad, and
Oh,
a
yeah.
bad musician's practice session sounds like they're amazing, right? Um, which is such like a juxtaposition of how that works. But I think, if you are just practicing the things that you are always good at, and then someone asks you to play something that maybe you should have been practicing but you didn't, then it's not a good situation. But a good musician, and these, I mean, this is like, you don't want to kind of label yourself as like, oh, I'm good or oh, I'm bad, but like
Right.
an effective way of practicing is doing the hard stuff and sounding you know, like you are working on something that you struggle with. Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Ouch, right?
I know. It's the reality of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So it's kind of, I guess, going on the same idea of that. Many of our listeners will be preparing for auditions. I mean, I have an audition coming up actually on Friday. So we have, you know, like we're all, I mean, every musician is preparing for something. But what are like when you audition, when you prepare for your auditions, what are maybe your top 3 things that you do beforehand to prepare?
Hmm. Let's see. Well, so since my area is collaborative piano,
Mm-hmm.
when I play for, if I have an audition coming up or anything that I really do, it involves a partner.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it involves a collaborator. So that means that I'm never alone on stage.
Okay.
Or I'm very rarely by myself on stage.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what I really love about what I do. Um, and so I always make sure that I treat my partners with respect.
Mm.
You know, that's really number one thing for me.
Yeah.
That, I mean, you know, you can get so much out of, you know, this like simple sentence like treat your partner, your collaborator with respect.
Mm-hmm.
That means, I don't know, I mean, that can mean so many things. You know, it means um, um, contact them, you know, um, far in advance. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
don't try to contact them like last minute. You know,
Yeah.
or I don't know, like basic things like have a legible score available for them,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, um, if you're playing a public performance, like acknowledge them on your recital posters and programs. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
not everything's not about you. It's about all of you.
Yes.
You know, so that's um that's the culture that I come from. When I
Mm-hmm.
say culture, I mean the collaborative piano culture. And, you know, at the beginning of our conversation, I talked about you know, the term accompanist. And, you know, it's not that I have anything against the term, but I know that it's a trend. It's
Mm-hmm.
been a trend since I'd say like the second half of the 20th century,
Okay.
um, you know, with the new term, collaborative pianist, and why did a new term, um, um, you know, showed up?
Mm-hmm.
It's because I think it just it makes it more clear that it's an equal partnership than having
Mm.
a pianist just accompanying, you know what I mean, like being secondary
Ah.
in the partnership. So I mean, of course, there are still some programs in the U.S. and also outside of the U.S. that you know refers to our art as accompanying, which
Mm-hmm.
is fine. But you know, I think more than the term, it's the attitude, right? And I just
Mm.
want to make sure that you know people um, know that this is an equal partnership.
Yeah.
So when I, you know, when I talk about treating my collaborators with respect, uh, um, I always hope that it's a two-way street. You know,
Yes. Yeah.
that pianists also are treated with respect, and that um, you know everyone involved um, knows and understands that it's all about an equal artistic partnership.
That's interesting. Yeah, no, I think that that is so important to say, especially because, you know, we might have some listeners who are maybe thinking about, you know, playing with a collaborative pianist, maybe for the first time. Is so just like for like so it's like for some examples. So what would an example of like, you know, having it go both ways for the collaborative pianist and the instrumentalist as well. So maybe what are some examples of things that you would like to see in maybe younger musicians in terms of that respect?
Mm, well, I think there are so many. I think there are levels and levels
Mm-hmm.
uh, of respect. So it goes from like very basic stuff, like as I said, um, having a legible score. I
Yeah.
cannot tell you how many times I've received, music that I can barely read. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
I mean that's very basic, right? But it
Mm-hmm.
still happens, and it's fine, and and people learn, and it's okay. Um, to like I've had situations like this, um, and I've also had some more intense, I would say. Like maybe this is not the place uh, to talk in depth about
Mm-hmm.
some bad experiences that I had. But things happen,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that um, let's put it this way. Maybe you want to treat your, I mean, anyone really, but
Yeah.
in this case, like your partner, your collaborator, the same way you want to be treated, right?
Yes.
So you wouldn't, you would like to have, for example, your name printed in a program,
Mm-hmm.
because you worked hard and you practiced,
Yeah.
and you want your, the audience to, to know about you and to know your name,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, what else? You want to, um, you want to have a voice during rehearsals. You don't
Mm.
want to only be told what to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm not talking about hierarchy like between teacher and, because that's a different type of relationship, right? But
Yeah.
I'm talking about like 101,
Mm-hmm.
rehearsals and 101 environments.
Yes.
So, you want to have a voice and you want to be a part of the creative process,
Mm-hmm.
you know. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, I've been in a situation like, the person pretty much said, "Well, you were being paid to just play for me."
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so that was quite of a shock. I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay, well, so it can be awkward,
Mm-hmm.
but it shouldn't be." And we there are so many ways of avoiding um, awkward and unnecessary, uncomfortable situations if you just treat your colleague the same way you would like to be treated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think that is so important to talk about. So yeah, no, that's so good. So kind of shifting gears, let's talk about maybe some projects that you have going on in the moment, or anything that you would like to share about. Yeah, do you have any exciting projects?
Yes, I do. Well, I just got done with a very, very cool project in
Mm-hmm.
partnership with Chamber Music Pittsburgh, called The Voices of Poulenc. And it was a project totally dedicated to Francis Poulenc, French composer
Mm-hmm.
uh, from the 20th century. I just, we did a lot of uh, pieces for oboe, actually. Yeah, for oboe and
Oh.
piano, including his oboe sonata. and I also played the opera La Voix Humaine with a singer for the second half. So it was all oboe and voice, which was very, very cool. So
Lovely.
I just got done with the project. So it's still pretty fresh in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
But looking ahead, I actually leave for Colorado next week for See You Now,
Mm-hmm.
which is now stands for New Opera Workshop, and
Okay.
that takes place at CU, the University of Colorado in Boulder, where I
Oh,
went to school.
cool.
So yeah, for the past few years, I've served as a music director and also assistant music director um, for the opera workshop.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's a very cool, creative, and out of the box uh, project. So how that works is we have a visiting composer every summer
Mm-hmm.
writing a brand new opera.
Ooh.
Yes. So we workshop that opera for whole 3 weeks, and then we present it at the end. So I mean, it doesn't need to be a full opera, but most of the composers write an act or two.
Mm-hmm.
You know, um, yeah. So we are doing this summer again, and I am very very excited to be a part of that.
Yeah, that sounds so cool. I haven't heard about this, but it is so freaking cool. My gosh. Yeah. Where can people, if people want to maybe hear your playing or hear some of your stuff online, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so people can find me online on duopragma.com. So Duopragma is a violin piano duo that I have with my husband,
Mm-hmm.
violinist Andrew Giordano, and we we do play standard repertoire for violin and piano, but also we are passionate about um, exploring other types of other non-standard works for
Oh.
violin and piano. So that includes, rarely performed, rarely
Mm-hmm.
heard pieces by both uh, famous but also marginalized, historically marginalized composers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so we do have a duo called Duo Pragma. Uh, so that's our website duopragma.com, and uh, on the same website you can also check out our um, teaching studio
Okay.
because we do team teach.
Mm-hmm.
uh, I get to work, to coach his violin viola students. We put together studio recitals every semester, and of course, I have my own piano students as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's where people can find me. And I also have a YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
and you can just type my name, Nathália Kato, and you're gonna be able to find some performances of mine.
Yeah, that's lovely. And we will be linking that in the show notes. So if anyone wants to listen to that or check out what Nathália is doing, make sure you go check those show notes. We are coming towards the end of this episode. Is there anything else that you want to chat about or bring up in this time?
No, I just wanted to really thank you, Eleanor, for this opportunity. And I wish you all the best. I cannot wait to see what the future holds for you. You are an amazing lady, an amazing person, an amazing musician, and it's been a pleasure to be working with you for the past year. I said, yeah,
Yeah,
past year and
yeah,
a half, something like
yeah.
that. And yeah, and best of luck and I hope that our paths will cross again one day.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much. That is so lovely of you to say. Well, that is about it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. Yeah, thank you so much for listening. As always, all of the links to do with this episode will be in the show notes from the blog post that goes to this episode, and all of the links that we just chatted about with, all of the stuff with Nathália online, that will be in the show notes. Make sure you do yourself a habit and look at these show notes, because let's be honest, there's some good stuff in there. And if you want to show your love and support for the Confident Musicianing podcast, please do give us a follow. And yeah, thank you so much, Nathália, for coming on, to this episode. I am so grateful, and yeah, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day.
Thank you, Eleanor. Thanks for having me.